Okay, the lesson is coming from Judges 7, chapter 7, 9 through 21. And it says, Gideon defeats the Midianites. And the golden text is, this is nothing else save the sword of Gideon, the son of Joshua, a man of Israel. For into his hand have God delivered Midian, all in all the host. How many, the introduction is, how many of the presidents of the United States can you name? Most of us Americans cannot name those who served during our lifetime, or a few, the more famous ones. Beyond that, unless you are in history buff, names of many of the less prominent presidents cannot even be recalled. Even if you know their names, you probably cannot identify anything significant they did during their administrations. It is the same way with the judges. During this period of several hundred years of Israel history, there were at least 12 different judges. Some of them mentioned only briefly, and we know little about them. Others, however, are given considerable space by the Bible, including their prominence and narrative. And as we saw in the last week's lesson, the reluctant Gideon eventually responded to God's call. But this was not before asking for several signs to assure him that the Lord was actually with him. While his actions are sometimes promoted as a means to discern God's will in Judges 6:36-40, it should be noted that Gideon's request for signs were not because of his strong faith. Rather, they were made because his faith was weak. And the outline is coming from, first outline is God promised a victory. It's coming from Judges 7, 9 through 14. And it also God's plan of attack, coming from Judges 15 through 18. And God's power, Judges 19 through 21. And another thing I'm going to read first of all, read some of the references that God gave us. And that's Leviticus 26:3. If you walk in my statutes and keep my commandments, and I will do these things. He also had verses Judges 7, 1 through 25, Isaiah 41, 10 through 14. Regardless, sometimes we look at these characters in the Bible, we feel like, how can these guys sit there and don't believe God? How can we sit there and not accept the word of God and act upon it? But we all find ourselves caught in that same situation. And we sit there and see all these people with all this money and say, man, how can you go broke? And then we turn around, we broke. You see, so we all got a problem with that. And I'm trying to be realistic. I got my shortcomings too. And you know God is very good to all of us and to himself too. And the first verse it said, it came to pass the same night, verses 7 to 9. And it came to pass the same night that the Lord said to him, arise and get thee down into the host, for I have delivered it into thy hand. In other words, he's talking about he's going to give him victory. And if not believe in God, God going to give us victory. And we accept God, then he will give us victory. He will take care of us. And as long as we're right. And here he's telling God telling him that yes, we will deliver you. In other words, they were going against the Midianites. Midianites were known to be very, very bad individuals. During the study at Liberty, you were talking about how they would take people and skin them and all that. That anything with the word NITES always carry with a bad disposition. And let's say verse 10. If thou fear to go down, go thou with Pharaoh, thy servant, down to the host. Even now, even though he's talking to God one-on-one, he's still afraid. And even though God blesses us with things, we still have a little weakness. Just like the other day, I've been trying to fix something where I live at, and what got me, I'm not even still scared and afraid. But look around and see, in the community, we're going to have trash load, heavy trash take. And everything I need to fix something, I go there, right there and around it. What I'll do is pick it up. I'm worried about how to do something, and I got everything free, you know. But sometimes we're that way. But we have to ask God to give us strength to keep pushing. And that's when you study the showing the self-approval of God, which is a very important passage. If you have any questions, let me know. And thou shalt hear what they say, and afterward shall thy hand be stretched to go down into the host. Then he went down with the Pharaoh and his servant to the outside of the armed men. They were in their host. In other words, he was taking them down to the Midianites camp, and he's going to listen to he's going to listen to information from the Midianites. Sometimes even with children, you have some children in your household are stronger than others, and you have to take a little extra step for some time for one of the kids, just so they can come up even with everybody else. And right now, to me, he was still trying to give this guy some guts, some firm foundation to do what he needed to do. And that's what God is telling him in verse 11. I mean, that's what's going to happen in verse 11. And he went down, and it's saying that you got the creator of the world behind you, with you, for you, and yet you got to have a mate. I mean, you got to have some support. You know, it doesn't make sense. But he did. You know, just like when I go in my neighborhood, and when something go down, I get my big brother, so we go down there together. So I feel okay. I'm ready. You know, but the same way he should be too. But in his case, he's not. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, certainly don't speak to Gideon's fears, but that's something we all do. With faith, even though God gives us all a measure of faith, that faith has to be developed.
Right.
And this is the process, and God is so gracious, he already knew that Gideon was going to be afraid of his task, because this is a strange test. And from looking from the physical, it seems impossible. But our faith, as it grows, we come to find out that, possibility is not a problem for the Lord. But yet still, even though we're in this relationship, as I said before, it's like marriage, it's a done deal, but it's a daily development. Every day, we have to trust God, inch by inch, step by step. So we're not going to be too hard on Gideon, because we know if we were in his shoes, we probably do the same thing. So, but through it all, we can see God's grace and God's mercy, how he nurtures us to learn how to walk by faith and not by sight. It's one thing to quote it, it's another thing to live it.
Yep.
So I was just watching last night, they talked about some of the things that happened in America. None of us thought we'd live to see a day when there was a black president. We thought there'd be something happen, in a whole another generation or two down the road. But nothing is too hard for God. So it comes back to God's time, and he knows just the right time in order to make these miracles come into history. Our job is simply to trust him and see what he's going to do.
I don't know how many people learn how to drive in Houston, but you can't tell me you first got on the freeway, you wasn't afraid. Just all these cars, man. You see what I'm saying? And let me kind of go back a little bit here also, that God, getting to have 300 soldiers. And you talking about going to war, man, this guy got 135,000. And he's talking about going to war, these guys are bad actors, you trying to defeat them, you only got 300 people. Yeah, I can understand him still being afraid, but that's just the way it is. And it said, and Midianites and the Amalekites and all the children of the east laid along the valley like grasshoppers, of multitudes, and their camels without numbers, as the sand by the seaside for multitudes. In other words, the army was very large. And only he's saying here, he's talking about how abundant the soldiers were for the Midianites, and who he gonna face, who he got to defeat. And I know I can understand him being scared. I really can. That's why I love the Spartans. When I read it when I was going to school, I read the Spartans, how brave they were, man. It was tough. And 300 Spartans, they were very good. And he didn't fit in that category. But he just let you know, in this verse here, it let us know what he's facing. And in other words, he got a lot to do in order to be successful. And verse 13, And when Gideon was come, behold, there was a man that told a dream unto his fellow, and said, Behold, I dreamed a dream, and lo, a cake of barley bread trembled into the host of Midian, and came unto a tent, and smite it, they fell, and overturned, and the tent laid along. In other words, the barley were they fed horses. And then you're saying, he got this guy was saying here, he had a dream believing that God was behind Gideon, and that he was going to, and they were going to lose. But but like I said, with that size of army and that type of weaponry, man, it's hard to see how they would lose. But one thing I learned about studying the Bible, God is also teaching his people who follow him to show how powerful he is, but he also showing the enemies how powerful he is and why they should serve him. In other words, God is awesome, and that's what a lot of things people don't realize. It's a test for everybody, really. And in verse 14,
before you leave that,
go ahead, sir.
I want to comment on that barley, as you read in your Sunday school books over the illustrated highlights points. It bring out that barley was also bread that was fed to the poor. So this is bread also was fed to poor people, in addition to being fed to the horses. So what God is showing us here, you saw in last week's lesson, God will take the weak in order to shame the proud. He'll take the foolish in order to confound the wise. So God is saying at your lowest point is a time that I can give you my strength, that I can make man look foolish, when he comes against me. And so this was the sign that he was given to Gideon. It doesn't matter how lowly you are right now. What's most important is that I'm mighty. And that's the attitude we have to take as we develop our faith in these various tests that God gives us from time to time. I don't see it. I don't say I can be done, but God, God is almighty. He's strong enough. He can do it. He's Jehovah Jireh. He'll provide whatever I need. Just think about the names of God and what he's done in the past for you. And that is what will spur you to keep on moving forward. Keep moving forward. Because the evil person is always going to try to break your spirit. Mm-hmm. And that's why you got to depend on the spirit that's stronger than yours. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the devil all the time. He always trying to reduce your faith in God.
Right.
And see, it's a sin and fear. But we all fear things.
Right.
I don't care who we are, how long, whatever the case may be, we still do. And another thing, too, you can tell that this is God's doing and not man doing. Because man doing, always going, the man with the most money, the man got the biggest ID, and all this. But God said, I don't need all that. All the people that were defeated, going back to the time they left Egypt, God defeated them with little nothing, man. I mean, he really did. And they hit David with a rock and take the biggest warrior in the world and kill him, And that's all, that ain't all God's plan. It's all God's plan. Anybody got anything else like that to take away? Okay. And in verse 14, and his fellow answered and said, This is nothing else save the sword of Gideon, the son of Joshua, a man of Israel. For into his hand hath the Lord delivered the Midianites and all the hosts. In other words, he ain't going to have victory. He ain't going to have victory, and it's going to be sweet victory. God's love is better than the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. It's something that's going to be continuous forever and ever. And now the next set of things is God's plan to attack.
On 14, I just want to emphasize, God also sent this man not only to interpret the dream, but to encourage Gideon as well.
Yeah, right.
And we all need encouragers. That's what we need to understand. If we don't understand nothing else, especially on this Father's Day, we have to encourage our children. We have so much against them. The systemic racism that we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. When you find out as a parent, you thought all along that you were, you had part in the total dream of America. You come to find out later everything had been skewed. Everything had been written for somebody else that wasn't all inclusive. Like Martin Luther King said, we got a promissory note that's never been signed. Mm-hmm. So then you think, well, how can I help my child? That's why you need to make sure your child has a relationship with Jesus Christ. Yeah. So look, baby, look, son, look, daughter. There's there's a father that's stronger than your father. Don't worry about that. God has never come short of his promises to you. I know man has lied to you. I know the nation has lied to us, but God never lies. You continue to trust in him, and you're going to be victorious in whatever field or whatever area you choose. And so this is what we have to do. You understand that words have power. Words have power. We don't find that out later on, because we got a lot of adults that are still hurting from things that were said to them as children, or they were not encouraged as they should have been by their parents or relatives, and they still try to, work through that. But if we put our trust in the Lord, say, well, God said it is so, you just keep trusting in that and keep moving forward.
When Floyd was killed, my grandbaby said the same thing. She ended up not going to church too. When Floyd was killed, she was talking about not going back to church either. And see, you agree, I agree on that. A lot of things sit in your mind. And just like bombed the 16th Street Baptist Church when I was a child, and they bombed the church. I told my man, well, we don't have to go back to church anymore. He said, no, we're going back to church. He made sure we stayed in church. Yeah. And that was the key to him. That was the key to us too. We didn't have no counsel like they have today, which don't mean ain't right or wrong. I'm not trying to down these individuals, but we always seem like we're finding ways to take God out of the system. Mm-hmm. And we need to add God to the system. You can't sit here and tell me something that happened in your life. You can't explain how you made it. You can't say, I did it. So I know one time we were on Flight 9, and this plane went off, it started up, blew all my eyeglasses on, my hat on. If it had a flame alarm, man, it would burn me from neck up. No doubt, man, no doubt. Man, that just freaked me out my socks, man. And I never found my eyeglasses. My hat and all that stuff, I didn't find it, man. One of the things I didn't find. But one thing about the military, they gave things like glasses, boy, they could bounce, man. It was just that thick. I had bad eyes. And it was so when Gideon heard the telling of the dream and the interpretation thereof, that he worshipped and returned into the host of Israel and said, arise, for the Lord hath delivered into your hand the host of Midian. Let me go back one other step to here. One other step. I want y'all, I was going to tell you at the very beginning, but keep some things in mind here. These are the Red Sea rules. Okay? I'm going to read all of them. Just keep this. If you can, keep in your mind how this compares to what he's doing. Rule 1, realize that God means for you to be where you are. Mm-hmm. I hate that rule sometimes, but it's true. Listen, realize that God means for you to be where you are. Be more concerned with God's glory than your relief. And acknowledge your enemy, but keep your eyes on the Lord. And rule number 4, pray. And rule 5, stay calm, stay confident, and give God time to work. And when unsure, just take the next logical step by faith. And vision God in enveloping presence. Trust God to deliver you in his own unique way. And we all see what he's doing here. That is all unique way. And he wants to put Gideon where he is at today. And said, view your current crisis as faith builder for the future. Don't forget to praise him. Now, I know we all heard of Amway. And Amway, the Amway thing, you pass it, you get everybody to come in. It's the same thing with us. We trying to get people to come in to God to become part of this program. Let me tell you, when everybody on one accord, it's easy. Just like in your community, you expect some people to do certain things. But we all Christians know thou shalt not steal. If I leave my nose, then I ain't got to worry about you coming to the house stealing anything. Okay? But I'm just saying, that's all God trying to do is pass the word on and that we all become on the same accord with him. Okay, so verses 16. And he divided 300 men into 3 companies. He put a trumpet in every man's hand with empty pitchers and lamps with the pitchers. And he had a torch, which was a lamp, which was the light. You know, he already died 300 people. And he used, I know he was saying to himself, man, how am I going to whoop these people like this? They're like me going one-on-one against two tall John. I ain't gonna win. I just ain't gonna win, you know. But one thing about life, when a lot of people go and talk about, well, you got to interfaith or something in man and your ability. No, you got to interfaith in God, and in order to be successful, and in order to accomplish things that you want to accomplish, need to accomplish. And here he is describing what tools they had to work with, and that was a whole lot. And he said to them, look on me and do likewise, and behold, when I come to the outside of the camp, it shall be that, as I do, so shall you do. When I blow a trumpet, and all that are with me, then blow you the trumpet also on every side of all the camp, and say, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. When I was a child, on my older brother, we had two hallways. One hallway going to the back door, hallway going to the bathroom. And I was by the bathroom. My brother come out of the hallway going to the back door. And we had the light cut off. So I took a broom and punched him in the back. Man, he went berserk. He started hitting the wall with his fist and all this, and he started fighting, man. Now, even though he didn't see nobody, you know what I mean? He didn't see nobody at all, but he was fighting like all get out. And what happened, that's why I thought about when I read this situation here. When God told him to blow the trumpets and all that, he caused so much confusion. They didn't know which way to go. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know who they would actually fight. You know, God takes little things and make big things out of them. And they become very devastating. Let me read a few other things. It said, when I blow a trumpet, and all that are with me, then blow you trumpets also on every side of the camp, and say, the sword of the Lord of Gideon. So Gideon and the 100 men that were with him, came unto the outside of the camp in the beginning of the middle watch, and they had but newly set by the watch, and they blew the trumpets, and breaks of the pitchers, they were all in their hand. In other words, this at midnight. People during that time, they fight wars in the middle of the night. They fought during daytime. And in this case, that was another thing. Sometimes you get set to do something a certain way. You got all the power to do it, but it could still be wrong. And they were wrong, preparing for a daytime fight, and they ended up being a nighttime fight. And they ended up losing. And that's when we broke the trumpet, blew the trumpet, and broke the pitches and all that, which created a lot of confusion among that army, to the point they were fighting each other. And you know what? Another thing too, you got over 300 soldiers. You got 100 going, that's 135,000. You know, be like a football player. We score a touchdown. Just point up to God. That's all you can do. And that's all the victory. That's all you can say, because it ain't you. And it's okay. And they stood every man in his place around about the camp, and all the host ran and cried and fled. In other words, in the last verse, that they just talking about how people are running because they was confused. They didn't know which way to go. They didn't know which way to do it. And but God took 300 men, a pitcher, trumpets, and a torch, and defeated 135,000 soldiers. And everybody at that time knew these guys were that good at what they did. But that's just the way it is when we trust in God. Like I said, a lot of times when I have a car, this guy lived in Providence. Used to give me a ride home every night. Bus 46 bus started running at 9:15. And I ain't got closed at 9:15 or beyond. And he would stop waiting on me and take me home. And I can't say you can't nothing else but God. That was it. If I did not go downtown, catch the 20, go downtown, then come all the way back to Charlestown area get home. But then I thank God even this day, because he was good to me. A lot of times you go through things you don't want to go through them, but you got to realize something. You're going to come a time that you're going to tell somebody else. And you're going to come a time that your children are going to look at you and say, wait now. It was the man above. I'm sorry, wait.
And that just goes back to us thinking about us, a very small church, how the Lord blesses us hand over fist. And the pastor said, long time ago, God don't count numbers, he makes numbers count.
Yeah. But, it's good time. Anybody got, I'm sorry, you got a question?
Yeah, I'll just check that the Lord will give you what you need. There's a scripture in Psalms that says, if God is all you have, you have all you need.
Yeah.
So, in this essence here, with Gideon, many of us are at different levels in our faith.
Mm-hmm.
And so, God will meet you where you are. And that's what he did with Gideon. You know, with the weak faith that he had, God kept giving him what he needed to see that he was going to get the victory. God kept showing him different, things that he needed to see in order to build his faith. And so in the same sense, God does that with us as well.
Yeah.
He gives us what we need to develop us and build our faith.
Yeah.
And so even sending them to the camp, sending someone with him, because that's what Gideon needed. Gideon needed that encouragement. He needed that support. So God gave him those things that he needed in order to be successful in carrying out his plan. Now God was going to do the deliverance, but he was going to use him to bring that deliverance about. So many times it's spiritual. We can't see how that plan is going to materialize. We just can't see, because in our humanity, when we're looking at, it's a 300 of us, and it's 250,000, almost 500,000 men going against us. I mean, it looks impossible. But God and you can do anything.
Yeah.
So we have to understand that we have to conquer our fear with our faith. We build our faith. God builds our faith. He builds us up, give us what we need to go into battle. Because the victory is already won. We're fighting for victory.
You see us Rick? Oh, no, I'm just, okay.
This is your lesson is outlined here. Once we accept God's, believe God's promise, and then we believe God's promise, then we have to accept His plan. The moment we accept God's plan, then we'll receive God's power. And this is, you were talking about the rest of the made it. Believe God, trust God to deliver you in His own unique way. Once you've already bought in God's, His truth and His plan, then you know it's going to happen, but it's all going to happen in God's time. And the practical points will bring out the fact that God will strengthen our faith during our time of testing as we rely on Him. And our faith is strengthened when we realize that God is in control. And that's what we have to understand. When we finally come to the point and say, God is in control of this, I'm just going to be obedient and leave everything, leave the results up to God. If I'm obedient, then God's going to do what's best for me, because God is always for me. And if we go through life with that in mind, we know in the end, things are going to work out. But we have to be willing to hold on to God's unchanging hand. Circumstances may change, but remember, God hadn't changed though. God hadn't moved away from me. Now, people may have moved away from me. Circumstances may have gotten to a place where it looks like there's no way out, but God is still with me. That's why it says on that red sea roof, envision God's enveloping power, enveloping presence. God says, when He says, I will, that's a promise. He says, I will go with you, and so we have to believe that. And when we do that, the results are going to be great.
And it says, if you walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them, then I will give you rain in due season, And the land shall yield her increase, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit. And your threshing shall reach unto the finish, and the finish shall reach unto the sowing time, and you shall eat your bread to the full, and dwell in your land safely. And I will give peace in the land, and you shall lie down, none shall make you afraid. And I will bring evil peace out of the land, neither shall the sword go through your land. And you shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword. And 5 of you shall chase, and hundreds of you shall put 10,000 to flight, and your enemies shall fall before you by the sword. And he's letting you know that he's with you all the way. Anyone have any other questions? Okay, we'll get Brother Mars to end us. Can we stand?